everybody. Welcome back to the Jeep Journals. My name is Ray, and today is January the 11th, and today I am currently 117.5 kilos, whereas yesterday I was 118.2, 118.3. I don't remember. I'll post the numbers on here separately in the description probably, just because it's faster and easier, and because I'm trying to keep this segment as quick as possible. I've tried many formats of short videos. Basically, it was suggested to me that I make shorter videos in order to present my personal presentation of what it is that I'm trying to convey here. And my response to that is that maybe we need to pay better attention and not necessarily worry about shorter clips or what the entertainment value of any of this is. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the entertainment value is about what we need to forego. And for me, my entertainment value has been pretty tied up into television, curbside meals, and pretty much the majority of everything that anyone could be entertained by. In addition to that, as many of you returning subscribers and viewers have been aware or have become aware, there are some personal adversities that I'm going through in my own family ranks. And by adversities I'm going through, what I mean is there are many people who continue to reach out to me about a specific problem without applying any kind of insight or corrective action to those problems. And so in order to mitigate all of the time that I've spent basically even sharing the content here with you about these adversities, what I want to do is further reinforce the fact that I've removed myself from these circumstances. So by that, what I mean is, if you look back at the history of some of the content that's on here, you'll see that there were all these different family situations that were going on with not really a whole lot of people who knew how to support those type of situations, because most people do not have a lifelong experience with alcoholism and addiction. And these type of lifelong experiences are something that would be difficult to acquire and even more difficult to put ourselves into the shoes of if we're hearing these bits of content. So that's why I tried to remove all of that content as we progress into this 2022 year and talk more about health and wealth and focusing on our health and how to regain those aspects of who we once were as we were more childlike children of God. So we touch a lot on spirituality in this segment, on this entire channel, throughout our entire lives actually, no matter which side we side with. In fact, in a lot of cases, if we side with the side, we can become offended at pretty much anything. Some of you might be offended that I have long hair. Some might be offended, they don't know what this is. This is basically a hairband. When I tie my hair back, I'm gonna go ahead and use this. Some people might be offended by the artwork that's, or the lack of artwork, or the different things that visually might tell you, hey, this is something that caught somebody's eye. Fact is, if you're getting angry at something, it's probably something that's catching your eye, and it would do you a huge amount of benefit to try and analyze, what is it that I got upset at when I heard, saw, or even spoke about this content. If we talk about climate catastrophes in the world today, the only thing I can say is that today it's about 55 degrees outside. I'm basically taking a stab at that. I'm probably right on target. I walked around outside, it was nice. In addition to that, there was a bit of rainfall with some pellets, some frozen rain that fell in the form of tiny hail or sleet, or whatever you call it, but it's definitely a bunch of pellets that accumulated on many of the rooftops in this neighborhood, and it made it look like a winter wonderland. In fact, while we were walking our dog, somebody drove by and stopped and asked if it had snowed overnight in the neighborhood. And so a lot of these things that are happening on the forefront of an ongoing cold season where we typically don't have a lot of frozen winter precipitation here they're just one-off anomalies. What's not an anomaly is the whole cohesive approach of becoming offended enough to talk down to what happened in the past. A lot of us don't want to accept what happened in the past, and so any kind of a talk that leads us in that direction will cause us to potentially try to cast stones or fists at the people who are talking about these truths. And in the past, there were a lot of subjects that talked about food, health, and peace, and how all of these things were interwoven. And there weren't a whole lot of video documentaries of these eras, besides the black and white clips and the fully beautifully restored color added versions of clips of things that happened in the past as they happened. Just for one example, you might think I'm getting way off base here, but just for one example, imagine going to YouTube, this very platform, and looking up guitar. Look up guitar music, guitar masters of the past. And you'll find in a lot of cases that you had entire auditoriums of people dancing and they were all fit. And, in some cases you had people that, maybe made a lot more convenience-based choices. And at the same time, they were still more fit than what we have going on in this era. So in this era, on this channel, currently called the Jeep Journals, what I've been trying to showcase is how wellness and conservation go hand in hand. And I've even talked about how certain destructive tendencies have caused certain things to go up in flames, including personal relationships. And in some cases, those flames are met with a flame retardant. And so the flames can't catch this other thing on fire. It's already on its own kind of fire. And when you have something that's brighter and on fire, a non-destructive fire, it's not like these elements really combine. However, they do combine effectively in that the fires that are burning in ways that are causing attention to be brought to the lights that are being shined. And in that cohesive way, as we watch these channels, we'll become more and more aware of the fact that there are things that can be done in this era, starting right now, so that we can improve our own health and the wealth of all of the people who are around us, who encounter our being. So to focus on this channel for a little bit of time, I wanted to just say, we got some unusual weather here again. We're gonna have some more unusual weather. It's about 55. It's gonna be about 75 or more or higher in just 3 days. And all of these things are gonna flip-flop again to where the temperatures dip down again into some pretty adverse conditions in different regions. And we really don't know what's gonna happen. We're potentially on a roller coaster ride of emotion right now. So usually when we become emotional, we can become emotionally compromised to where we sometimes overlook the things that we're putting in our own hands and taking as entertainment value. So again, all of these topics come together, and they come together in a way where I'm not quite off base. I'm just talking about it in a way that maybe our fathers didn't care to teach us in the past, and they still don't care to teach us in the current, because many of our fathers, if you're like me, many of our fathers are not present. I'm not excluding anyone or including anyone. I'm just saying in generality, in many cases, many of our fathers are simply not present. And in a lot of cases, many people I've heard say that once our grandparents started to pass away, the family nucleus was taken apart. And part of the reason it was taken apart is because we no longer have these sit-down meals where we're able to have a well-versed, unrehearsed set of communication that goes in multiple directions, not just between father and son, but what about father and son and parents and grandparents and step parents and stepbrothers and stepmothers and on and on. All of these different aspects of communication are essential when it comes to regaining our health. So again, I'd like to say I started out yesterday at 118.3 kilos, and today I'm 117.5 kilos. It's January the 11th. I'm telling you all of this information without a script, and it's sometimes challenging because I was, as a child, dropped on my head. And so there are certain things that either by my reinforcing it, by saying over and over, I'm challenged when it comes to recalling numbers. Maybe by that, or the fact that I was literally dropped on my head. Maybe one of those two things makes it sometimes so that it's very difficult for me to remember numbers. And so for me to tell you these numbers, the fact of everything that I'm telling you about wellness and conservation is being aware, being more aware of what's going on. And right now I'm looking at basically a mobile device. It's got cameras aiming at me. The recording screen is on the other side, so I can't even see. Is this device still recording? I really don't know. In some cases, that might be problematic. For me, I just figure whatever is meant to be is going to happen. And basically, that's what's been happening on this channel. That's what I've been demonstrating when I talk about these topics that I've learned in different areas, including self-sustained communes where all of their own food and produce is raised right there. And I've lived in these areas. I've traveled to different remote regions. I've seen all the stories about people who have said that they and their partner have left the workforce, and now they're just making all the money that they need to make by doing what it is that they were meant to create. And for a lot of people, the creativity aspect has been far left behind because, again, our fathers don't really appreciate any kind of creation that's not brought to and advertised to the masses by some corporate entity that also delivers a sugary sense of satisfaction with each of those bits of content. So in this particular channel, where several people have gone out of their way to voice how I need to curb my voice to fit to the songs, or how I need to curb my presentation of the imagery, or how I need to shorten the presentation, what I'd like to do is give you many reasons to hear the fact that maybe it's not me, maybe it's you. You're watching this video for a reason. If you're not laughing along with this, then you're becoming offended. Remember, look inside and think what it is that's making that offense boil to the surface, and just know it's part of the mix. The flavor, it's part of your flavor. And that's the reason you're here. So if you're here still and you're listening and you understand that you have a flavor that I value, please click on the thumbs up, like this video, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget, every one of us is on a unique journey, coming at it from a unique perspective with unique knowledge that can be shared right now in this era where we do have a documented stream of different ways to share content, sometimes across the globe, for little to no money. In this particular case, I'm using a channel and I'm talking about unpopular subjects like health and wildlife struggles and climate challenges, and also the successes that we're seeing along the way. There are people who are planting entire backyards of tomatoes and gardens where flowers are abundant no matter what the temperature is. And as long as the insects come to feed, there are flowers in these yards. In some yards, we're just using the miracle degrowth and the weed be eliminated type chemicals. And these are coming off the shelves at the big box stores where we continue to shop as if this was taught to us and it's written in stone. In my upbringing, there were only a few things that were written on tablets of stone, and those guidelines were really all there was to becoming an integral part of the society you were in, a joyful, respectful, responsible part of the society that we are in. So again, I touch on a lot of things, but really what I want to talk about today is that yesterday, for my first day of the 7-day vegan challenge, what I had was basically pecans, cherries, a few blueberries, some Beyond Meat tacos, but without the tacos, with corn chips. And if you look at different sets of ingredients across the board, the biggest struggle is the removal of meat content. And of course, if you go full vegan, then you're talking about the elimination of all animal-based products, which would typically include honey, typically include milk, cheese, something about the flour in tortillas, for an example. I think it uses lard. All of these different things are things that we would not be able to have. But for most people, the biggest struggle is we don't look at what we can have. What we can have is way more abundant in many of these areas where you are watching this video. It's way more abundant than we give credit to. And it's way more abundant because A, we don't need to be starting out eating all day long. We don't need a routine such as was taught to us by our fathers. Our fathers may continue to need something to wake up, to need something to be able to discuss, so they need to see the news channels because they need to know what's happening with their portfolios. But many of us don't ever look at what's happening on our own portfolios. In this particular case, what I'm trying to do is raise awareness towards wildlife and nature by demonstrating how wellness and conservation go together. So I'm asking you again to follow along during this 7-day vegan journey as you hear little snippets about what did you eat? What did you do? Had a lot of water. I had a beetology drink, which is basically beet and cherry juice pressed. It's cold pressed, and it's just beet and cherry juice. And I've had a lot of different things that I'm not necessarily trying to advertise. What I'm trying to say is look at the labels, look at the ingredients. Better yet, stop grabbing things with just labels. Grab that pear, grab that apple. Had a banana, by the way. Had a banana too, and that was delicious. And all of these things, as children of a creator, this is something that we've all enjoyed when we had recess, when we played with our friends, when we were outside, when we were able to fully go outside and have the capacity to move about, like as if we had our own energy. And now we're getting to an era where people are on the decline, cognitively, physically. We're on the decline in general, as a whole. And I don't really want to follow in the same direction. So if you also want to go in a different direction and learn new things, thank you for joining this channel. Thank you for subscribing. Congratulations. We have many, many channels available to us where we can learn, but not everything resonates with us. Like I mentioned in yesterday's segment, this guitar right here resonates with me quite a bit. When I talk, I can hear it. I don't know that it picks it up on the mobile device. I tried to play it back yesterday so I could hear it. I couldn't hear it. Maybe I'll need to set up a second audio recorder right here so you can see what I'm talking about. For those of you musicians in the group who have guitars surrounding you, if you've ever had a dog bark or if you've ever had some kind of noise happen that's caused the strings to reverberate, you know what I'm talking about. This guitar doesn't reverberate as much. I've noticed that about this Yamaha FGX-B1 bamboo guitar that was made because Yamaha was trying to experiment, try to find if we could make something out of faster growing, more sustainable alternative than clear cutting rare woods from forests across the world. That way we could have something that could grow back as quickly as this item was basically being produced, instead of having something that was produced and then having a blank slate where nothing was to include all of the habitat that went to those rare trees in those old growth forests that were necessary. In today's world, I'm going to liken the elderly to our old growth forests. Our elderly are necessary, and yet for some reason they've been clear cut to where they're not even showing up at our family celebrations. And this might just be unique to maybe myself, but if you're watching this channel And I even go so far as to say, if you're hesitant to participate, it's very possible that you yourself are encountering these type of anomalies, and you're seeing that some of our fathers and mothers are simply not showing up. They're not participating in this global ecosphere that is in fact suffering. And so while we're going through these situations, what I'd like to do is continue to demonstrate that we ourselves, in most cases, only suffer what we are consuming and what we are putting ourselves into the proximity of. So if I know somebody who is going so far as to try and physically punch me and stab people around them, and people that almost run into them because they run across a parking lot, and they set fire to things, I may not want to be in that proximity of that person because they're harmful. And I might also at the same time do my best to get the attention of an authority figure, if there was such an authority figure to reach out to. In today's era, again, it's generally something that family is able to try and rein in while we've got time to rein it in. But after a certain point, after that shininess of childhood has worn off, after the novelty of childhood has worn off, we start to forget about our older pets that are ailing, for an example. You can go to a pet shelter and see what I'm talking about. Or you can just do your research and access the mind files that you've got. How are those mind files, by the way? Are you able to recall what happened when you were 5, 6, 7 years old? In a lot of cases, we don't really clearly recall what happened some 40 years ago. And in fact, in a lot of our older generation, the ones that are being clear-cut right now, they don't even recall some of the things that happened just last week or even yesterday. And so the reason that we're talking about wellness and conservation is because if we cannot focus enough to know what's going on today or yesterday, how the heck can we know what happened in the past? And how can we avoid repeating that history that we always talk about as somehow going to be able to be continued if we don't recall it? If we don't remember the past, surely we're going to repeat it. These are things that we know are true, but we don't continue to recall what was true when we were thinking. Again, look up guitar lessons, look back to blues legends, and see the clips that happened that accompanied this music. And look at the people dancing. Look at the health and vitality. And then start to wonder, what's the difference? Is the food different? Is the nutrition different that's going into the food? Is it possible that the impossible is not really good for us? We don't know. So that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm exploring this journey with you and showing you. For over a year now, I've pretty much kind of remained steadfast in eating the way that the standard American diet has allowed us to. And I've seen what's happened. I've essentially gained 40 pounds of awesomeness, of stored energy, but at the same time, I've also noticed that old injuries have resurfaced. There are certain pain points in my body that are starting to become more common. And these are the things that I remember our elders talking about all the time. And in fact, I had one elder not long ago tell me about an injury that I'd sustained. You're going to feel that for the rest of your life. I took that as a challenge because that's the way our fathers taught us. Our fathers taught us that basically once something happened, there was no recovering from it. Our fathers taught us that once we reached a tipping point, there was no need to change anything because it's too late. How many of you feel like it's not too late? How many of you feel like that we can do something to change the outcome of all of what we're seeing? So that's basically what I've been doing along this journey. And in this journey, a lot of people who are not paying attention, who are tuned out, they'll see a few clips, they'll excuse themselves out because I'll show a reptile of some sort. I think those individuals might have a reptile dysfunction, and that's why they dismiss themselves. Some people might dismiss themselves because they hear something about spirituality, and it kind of causes a conflict with what they already believe, steadfast belief. I'm not trying to change your beliefs. I'm trying to present my insight, my perception, my point of view, because this is called YouTube, and you're watching me on this tube. Whether it's a vertical or a horizontal or how I like to watch YouTube, a high definition television, so I'm able to get the full picture, especially for the nature clips that some of the nature nuts are sharing. I strongly encourage you to take a break and really think about the things that are being discussed on channels other than the sponsored and advertised media. Sponsored and advertised media doesn't want you to be aware of what time it is. What time is it where you're at? Don't forget to look in a couple of minutes and try to see, am I really awake? Am I watching this? Is this a dream? In some cases, many of us who are dreaming and who are awake are quite asleep during both our waking hours and our sleeping hours. We don't pay attention to what's going through our minds. Some of us might have suffered as children from nightmares, recurring nightmares that we don't typically want to give credit to. Some people have admitted to me that they're bedwetters, and they had been bedwetters up until later years in life. I grinded my teeth when I was a child. I remember very vividly how often one of my parents would shake me violently and say, "You're grinding your teeth." And basically, that made me even more nervous. So sometimes I couldn't go to sleep because I was afraid of basically my real life nightmare right there in the same room with me. With all of these things in mind, I know that many of you have suffered for many, many years, for decades. And I know that some of us are beyond the grasp of those firebugs who would burn us. We're beyond the boundaries where something harmful can reach us, but we're still acting as if we are in panic mode. And there's no need to do that. So the first lesson on this second day of what I'm presenting to you when it comes to restoring our health and wellness is to pay attention to your own breathing. Many of us, when we get panicked, especially in a conversation where we're sitting next to someone and we have a disagreement in terms of a point of view, some of us will just start yelling things out and never watch our own breath. Some of us even get to the point where we start to hyperventilate and our eyes can become red as we're yelling at the other person. Have you ever seen someone who is seeing red when they look at you and who's being belligerent, who's berating you? I'm sure you have. It's happened throughout time in many ways for many reasons. Some of us have had that happen because of gender difference. Some of us have had that happen because of race difference. And some of us have had that happen because of generational difference. In many cases, the fact is, yelling at somebody is a manifestation of being angry at our own self. So as you leave your comments, I admire all of the comments, by the way, and I do interact with as many as I can. As you leave your comments, the comments of hostility or the advertisements for things that don't belong in a place where we ask to lead us not into temptation and deliver us from evil, those things seem to fall away by themselves. And it's not like I'm taunting anything to contribute more. What I'm actually doing is providing people an outlet to become well again. And in order to become well, in order to understand that there's a well to become, first, sometimes we need to recognize that we are not well. If you're not at ease, you might have dis-ease, unease, uneasiness, anxiety. Many of the people who I've worked with in the past who had anxiety learned to breathe. I myself had to learn the same technique. In order to rid myself of anxiety and be able to focus for long enough to know today's January the 11th. It's 2022. I'm right here, sitting here telling you that I've lost almost 1 kilo during my first day of the vegan challenge. I'm looking forward to telling you in 7 days what I've accomplished. And over the course of these 7 days, as you watch these videos, you're going to see a little bit of difference, a little bit of a spark in energy, a little bit of awesomeness transmitted directly to you, and not transmitted so that you have extra awesomeness, but so that this is content that you're consuming. You're consuming awesomeness, and you're going to be returning your own energy in the form of awesomeness to this channel by clicking on subscribe, by typing in the comments, by clicking on like, by talking with the other people that are in this thread. There are so many ways that we can get outside of the bubble and go beyond what our fathers taught us. There are so many ways that fall in accordance with all of the directives and legalities that we are not only bound by, but also not necessarily bound by. And but by that, what I mean is, it may not be legal, for an example, to steal property from the elderly and infirm who are unable to make sane decisions. But at the same time, if you look very closely at the past, using examples that maybe are even on this channel, you might find that there is no real system that is going to go out of its way to help you when things start to fall apart in your own family nucleus. The only things that are going to help are basically to revert to, how do I bring peace to myself? Once I bring peace to myself, I bring peace to that which is around me, naturally. Some of my best friends have taught me all of these facets of insight. And I would never have known that without having the discussions with them. So with all of these discussions that I'm presenting, again, this is just the second day of the 7-day vegan challenge. And this is my insight. I want to tell you, I lost almost a kilo in excess weight. And that was something that was transmitted into something profound, something energetic to share with you on this channel, YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I really just ask that you be mindful about your breathing. That's the first thing to start with. As you lay yourself down to sleep tonight, if you use a pillow, if you sleep on a bed, I don't know what you sleep on. Some people sleep on couches. As you lay down, pay attention to how stiff your neck is that you're laying on the pillow. Know that there is literally a term, stiff-necked, that you can look up in some of these texts of peace that some people might shun. Know that there is ample conversation that has to do with food in these texts of peace. And also be aware that an angry response is almost always an inward reflection of something that causes us to touch on something called fear. Fear manifests in a lot of different ways. And fear is something that can absolutely be devastatingly destructive, to the point where someone might walk up to someone with a screwdriver or some other tool, some other instrument that can be used to stab at somebody. And that's literally what they'll do in a fit of rage. So anger, rage, they're tied together. If some people don't believe that they can go into a rage, but they're very angry, it's very important that you listen. There was this guy that I used to watch on this tube. Listen, he'd say all the time. He was like the big brother or something, little brother. Listen, I don't have any brothers. I have a stepbrother. Listen. Actually, everyone around the world is my brother and sister. Listen, we're children of God. If you're feeling that you're angry, I hope that you can backtrack through this channel, find some wildlife clips that I've shared, listen to some of the tunes, tell me how to refine it so it doesn't just carry that anger through to where you also feel angry from hearing the things that you're hearing. Try to tell me if you can actually hear the story that's being told in a new song. Read a poem. Write your own poem. Do something creative. Mostly though, learn to breathe. Focus on your breathing. Once you're able to master your breath, almost everything else, even the most complicated fight scene that is presenting itself to you, will become something that's just, it's something that can be overcome easily. I mean, you can see all the movies, you can watch all the different superstar characters, the lead roles, you can read all the peaceful texts, and you can also learn that that message is vital when it comes to wellness and conservation. Wildlife and nature, that's just one aspect. Wellness and conservation goes hand in hand across the board, no matter whether we're talking about wildlife or wild activities that some people are leveraging against the rest of us. So without that team, we're going to have some difficulties reining in some of the situations. However, we are able to team up with a higher power, a higher version that's able to orchestrate something that takes and blooms right in front of us, something that becomes beautiful out of the chrysalis of the metamorphosis that we are experiencing right now. So again, until next time, I absolutely appreciate those subscribes. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope some of this resonates with you. I know that we're going to be presenting a whole lot of more important information, a whole lot more important examples of how this information has come to reality. You know, the law of attraction. Basically, what you're entitled to, what you were bestowed with, this wealth that you were promised in this life. Again, no matter what your level of belief, no matter what your attributions are, no matter what name, what language, we're all able to speak a universal language called love. And when we are in love, we're able to channel that energy into something that becomes way more profound than the destructive energies that only can come from some entity that wants to kill, steal, and destroy. That's really all there is to it. If you're not affiliated with killing, stealing, and destroying, you're probably going to be, and even if you are, you're probably going to be attracted to something that is going to be sustaining life, contributing, and creating. Because everybody wants to have some kind of a level of comfort. And in these levels of comfort, there are levels of leadership that are going to be presented. And if those levels of leadership are not present at our tables during these group get-togethers, whether there's a lockdown or not, we have no representation among our fathers and mothers. And so it's about time for us to change the channel. It's about time for us to tune in to what's right. And it's about time for us to dial in the ingredients or the lack of ingredients, such as one-time use items that bring our conveniences to us. And it's about time that we begin to embrace all race, embrace one another, have a great day. Watch out for those unusual weather patterns. I'm going to be showcasing whatever I can showcase here, just so you can enjoy some of what I get to see in this neck of the woods and wherever I might travel to. And embrace yourself. Take a deep breath, give yourself a hug and a pat on the back. And if you have a couple of extra bucks, remember I'm still trying to raise money for a haircut. Please, if you wouldn't mind visiting thejeepjournals.com. That's going to be linked in the description. Read through there. Find out how you can contribute if you'd like to contribute, if you'd like to see me get my hair donated. And I would absolutely appreciate being able to use all of the abundance that's available to help bless others, just like you've blessed me with the confidence that was necessary to find my own voice. Thank you for helping my voice. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff. Thanks for watching.